We live here, in this 100-year-old school in the middle of Indiana cornfields. And this school has a lot of history. History that we've been trying to honor by adding tons of little custom touches and magical details around the school as we've been turning it into our home.
Like these custom floor mosaics that I made for the schoolhouse entrances.
When we started this journey of turning an old school into our house over 3 years ago, we had a lot of normal renovation goals, like fix the roof, make the windows actually keep the weather outside. Still working on that one. Maybe even have, walls. But somewhere along the way, I got an idea. And I was like, you know what? We're not being ambitious enough. What this school needs is a vintage style floor mosaic. And heck, why not make it a double? I always thought making a mosaic floor was reserved for ancient artisans with decades of experience and the patience of a saint. Turns out that's not true at all, and it's a lot easier than it looks. So, if adding unique touches to your home and addictive little hobbies sounds like fun to you, stick around. This project, with all the how-to research and hours spent hunched over snipping tiles into their perfect little shapes, it has turned out to be one of my favorite parts of the schoolhouse so far. So let's dive in, and I'll show you exactly how I pulled it off start to finish. If you're new to this channel, let me give you a very brief backstory to set the stage. We bought this school back in 2021 when we were living in New York City. We'd just had our first son, and we'd started looking for a quirky old house back in our hometown where both of our families lived. We always knew we wanted to find a house that needed some projects, and we definitely got that.
See, right now we can see into the basement.
And because it was a school, we were immediately in love with the idea of celebrating the building's history through decor and design choices that honored its history. And I had always loved mosaics and pottery and messy kiln stuff. So from taking shots of shop entrances around New York to photos on our travels, I'd just been collecting little ideas over the years. And once we bought the school, I was like, this place deserves a mosaic. But we had a new baby and jobs and construction to manage from afar. And if that wasn't enough, fast forward to 2022 when we had to pack everything up and move to Philadelphia for a 1-year fellowship for Sean's job. So, a new city, moving in with a toddler. I was also super pregnant again. And then Sean had to work a ton of late nights and on the weekends.
So I was like, that's it. I'm gonna do my mosaic.
I went down a deep research rabbit hole. There are plenty of tutorials on mosaics, but almost nothing on doing them on mesh backers, and especially not in the classic 1900s municipal fancy style that I wanted. What I did find were tons of mosaics for sale on Etsy using mesh backers. For a small fortune. At this phase in my mosaic research, I was a little scared. It was going to take a while to make this, and what if it looked terrible? What if I wasn't able to install it? But I kept on, and I spent many nights reading deep into the archives of Helen Miles Mosaics and reading Joe's blog over at Mosaic Art Supply. After completing 2 60-plus hour mosaics, my biggest takeaway is this. Literally anyone can do this, as long as you're patient, you have the right tools, and get a bit of joy in repetitive tasks. And these mosaics don't have to go on the floor. You can make them into a table or as an elevated doormat on a piece of wood or as a sign or even in your kitchen as a backsplash.
So here's how to do it. And I've started with the supplies for the actual mosaic part. Later in the video, I'll share the supplies for the installation of your mosaic. And of course, I've got everything linked out in my description below. First thing, you need some tile. I chose the Cinca unglazed porcelain because it's just super, super durable. You'll also need a tile file. This helps you hone and file down the pieces of tile so that they're the perfect shape. You'll need some weld bond glue, some tile nippers, some tweezers. Do not skip these. Like, seriously, do not skip these. I used both the culinary tweezers and craft tweezers, which makes me feel like I'm 12 again playing Operation. The tweezers help you pick up the tile, get a dab of glue on it, and precisely place it where you need on the mosaic mesh. And finally, some saran wrap and some tape. Okay, so we've got the supplies. Now, how do you actually make this thing? Now, I didn't film it super well when I was doing the original mosaics, so I'm making another one. And this time I'm making another mosaic for the cocktail cellar in the basement. We've been doing a ton of work down there, and I just felt like it deserved a cool sign. And stick around to the end of this video because I'm gonna show you some of the updates that we've been making down there. And for this sign, I used a little bit of a different tile. These are actually marble cutting strips from Mosaic Art Supply, and they give more of an old world feel that I was looking for with the cocktail cellar.
Plus, this business, they're just so cool. And I love the About Us section on their website. Quote, "For starters, we don't have grossly overpaid directors from the patrician class, and we pay our employees as much as we can afford. More than we can afford, actually, but not what they're worth. Unlike a lot of charities and foundations with overpaid directors, we have never had any unpaid interns." And while I am a raging dog person, even I can respect the quiet corporate hustle of an office cat. So, step 1, design. To get started, first you need to come up with a design. The beauty of mosaics is you can literally do any design you want, and for my municipal-inspired mosaic, I made a little logo of sorts in Canva. They have tons of templates, so even if you're not a designer, me, you can make beautiful stuff. Next, you'll want to print your mosaic on the size you want. For this, you can export your file as a PDF and then print it enlarged across multiple sheets of paper.
Although I hate printers, but at least this works.
If you export your photo in the size you want, there's a tool called Posterizer that I've linked where you can posterize your image for printing. Once you survive the HE double hockey sticks of printing your image, you're in the clear. It's all fun from here. Make yourself a flat surface where you can tape things, and first tape down your design. Then tape down a layer of saran wrap on top of your design. This lets you see your design underneath the mosaic mesh without gluing it to the paper. Then on top of the saran wrap, tape your mesh backer. Now it's time to get to work. For the mosaics and the schoolhouse entrances, I started with 1" by 1" unglazed porcelain tile, but I wanted that delicate, fancy, small tile look, so naturally I made my life harder by cutting every single 1" tile into quarters. But honestly, I love how slightly wonky tiles make the whole thing look more organic and conveniently more forgiving when you're cutting letters or fitting tiles around them. And now, when cutting these odd shapes, don't expect perfection. If a tile ends up looking like a misshapen potato, just save it for later for around letters or the filler areas. It'll find its home. Basically, mosaic making is like putting together a giant puzzle that you get to keep forever. For gluing your tiles to the mesh backer, the key is to make sure that they stick without drowning everything in glue. Just enough to hold, but leave that sweet, sweet surface area open for grout, because grout is what will really hold the mosaic together. So just repeat these steps for, I don't know, a couple hundred or 1,000 pieces, but just enjoy the process and get some good audiobooks.
Now, before I get to the installation process, I need to go find Pim, because today's video is brought to you, again, by Finn, a company that makes top-notch supplements and toppers and grooming products for the dog members of your family. Yes, of course, here she is. I talked about Finn in the previous big tour video showing all of Pim's tricks. Breakdance! But don't let this girl's ray gun skills fool you. Pim is a 10-year-old old lady. For the last 6 weeks, she's been using the Hip and Joint plus the Skin and Coat supplements, and I've definitely noticed that she hasn't had as many creaky joint mornings, and her little chest, which has been pretty bald in spots over the years, she's looking pretty good. Oh, we're moving on to the... Like I mentioned in my previous video, after 10 years of working in the dog industry and witnessing all of the crazy claims of the pet supplement world, I really love that Finn is National Animal Supplement Council certified, which means that they adhere to rigorous standards for quality, control, ingredients, and are consistently formulated to meet their health claims. If you want to get Finn for your own dog, click the link in my description or scan the QR code on screen for 15% off your first Finn order with Schoolhouse 15 at checkout. But today I'm heading over to my brother's house with some of the Finn allergy and itch supplements for his dog. Which dog has allergies? And because my brother and his wife actually just finished their own mosaic for their old house, and I've got to see it. For Nash right there, Arlo.
Poor old Nashie right here gets pretty bad seasonal allergies, and he gets super itchy each spring. So after reading how it's helped other dogs, I'm going to watch him really closely as we head into this year's allergy season to hopefully give him some relief.
Hopefully it makes you feel better, bud. Oh. Hi, Abby. Hi, Abby.
Now, back to mosaic talk. Just over a year ago, my brother and his wife bought an old house in town, and they also thought, you know what would be fun? A mosaic. because questionable DIY decisions must run in the family. And don't forget the magic ingredient of a new baby. No, but seriously, I just wanted to show off their mosaic because it's such a great example of how mosaics aren't just for people who make irrational real estate choices like buying an old school. Has it been as hard as you thought it was, or?
That? No, I don't feel like it's really been hard. Just like time consuming, definitely.
Yeah. Oh wait, I didn't get your face. And clearly, my brother is bursting with originality when it comes to tile designs, but who am I to judge? Here was my inspiration. So how we got our mosaic floors installed. I'm breaking this next part into two sections. First, how we got the floors installed in the schoolhouse, and then I'll wrap up with how I finished my very official engine room cocktail cellar sign. When it came to installing the actual floor mosaics, my brother and I made the very wise decision to leave it to a professional, aka Greg the Tile Man. Greg is so talented, and he was kind enough to let me film all of his steps putting in the tile throughout the school so that I could make this video. And he was also very tolerant of the peanut gallery watching him work. It's called grout. It's like mud.
Well, mud is not that well.
So step one, sourcing the tile. Finding the right tile was an adventure. I couldn't just waltz into Lowe's and grab standard mosaic tiles. Instead, the universe demanded a quest. I worked with Emily from Shot Design here in Indianapolis to source tiles that matched my mosaic. And then Emily made some detailed plan instructions for laying out the tile in the designs we wanted. This was worth it. Not only did it help Greg follow the plan, but I ended up with tile that looks amazing in the mosaic and in the rest of the house. If you want to use the exact tiles that I did for whatever beautifully unhinged project you're planning, I've linked them below. Step 2, surface prep. Before tiling, Greg had to make sure the floor was ready because nothing ruins a mosaic like a bad foundation. He installed concrete board over the plywood floor, applied a thin set mortar scratch coat to smooth things out and help the tile stick, made it all look effortless while I stood there with a camera contributing absolutely nothing. Next, Greg laid out the tile to make sure everything fit according to plan. He trimmed tiles and mosaic sheets where he needed and then marked guidelines on the floor to keep everything aligned. Once the layout was finalized, Greg applied a thin set mortar one small section at a time and placed the tiles. At this point, Dave, who is our amazing floor guy, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I've done some tile before, but Greg is making this look easy." That is not easy, to keep everything straight and measured. And honestly, that about sums up Greg. I don't know if it's the music or just my love for tile, but I feel that end of a sports movie euphoria watching Greg install this tile. The next step after all this mortar cured was grout, with an equally entrancing Greg at work montage. What's he doing?
I'm cleaning.
He's not cleaning, he's grouting.
No, I'm not.
In the end, all the tile in the schoolhouse is looking so good. And I'm already brainstorming the tiles that we want to choose for the basement, but we've got to save up a bit for those areas, so we've got some time. I'm just so thankful for Greg's knowledge and skill, and watching him work really drove home why we call the professional for the big tile jobs. All of that measuring would have driven me fully insane.
But for little projects like this sign, I can handle this due to very little math being involved.
To finish the sign to hang in the cocktail cellar, it's time to try my hand at some grout. First though, I need to mount the mosaic on a piece of plywood.
So I cut the wood to match the sign size, and then I spread a thin layer of weld-bond glue and pressed the mosaic into it. I could have just glued this mosaic directly to the plywood, but I wanted to make this video, so here we are. Now, I'm using glue instead of thin set because this is a sign, not a floor or a table. If you're installing a mosaic where it will get wet or walked on, don't do this. Do it the Greg way. After the glue dried, I added a bit of trim to frame out the sign. Okay, here I have these handy miter shears, and these are gonna help me trim the trim to make the frame for the sign without having to use the miter saw. This just shows you how easy it is to trim with these instead of having to use a big saw. Now it's time to grout. And I was very excited about this because I've never done this before, but I love messy things. First, you need to mix the grout to a peanut butter-like consistency, and then you spread it over your mosaic with gloves. Press the grout into the gaps, and that's about it. You let it sit for 10 minutes, and then you wipe it off with a damp sponge, rinsing it repeatedly. I would advise using a larger sponge, but I couldn't find mine at the time of filming. And then you let it cure for 24 hours. After that, I added a layer of Aquamix's stone enhancer to really bring out the colors of these marble tiles, and then it was time to add mounting hardware and hang it above the cocktail cellar.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful?
I
All right, now for a quick tour of the cocktail cellar, aka the engine room. We named this room the engine room because literally it was the engine room when our school was a school. And I think it powered the rudimentary HVAC system and fans and the basic electric that was in here. You can see the electric here. Back here you can see the engine's wheel where there used to be a bunch of like ductwork up here.
Now, just to set the stage, this is what the room looked like when we bought the school. And here are some of the things that we've worked on.
We've still got a lot more work to do down here, and I do plan to do a full video just about the cocktail cellar soon, but I just wanted to show off some of the progress. We spent a ton of time cleaning and sealing up the brick. I have a whole video about that process before, but we used the same process down here. And then a few weeks ago, we ordered some of the IKEA EVAR cabinets, and we've used these cabinets upstairs for a pantry as well. And I'm a little bit new to the world of IKEA hacking, but these cabinets are $100 each, and with some stain and some lacquer, they are such a steal for how good they look. And I have to say, organizing all of the bottles was one of the more satisfying organization things that we've done in the schoolhouse. And if you're like, why the heck do they have so many different bottles of things. For many years we were living in New York, I had this little cocktail side hustle Instagram where I'd post and invent recipes, and then a lot of brands ended up sending me bottles of things. Plus, whenever we'd travel anywhere, we'd try to find the most regionally authentic thing to try, and that's how we've ended up with, liqueurs from the Greek Isles, a bunch of obscure Amaros from Italy, and, Spanish digestifs. So it's just a fun thing to do and explore all of the tastes and flavors of the world and plants with little cocktails and cocktail parties with our friends. So yeah, this is what the cocktail cellar is looking like. Eventually we need to save up to do some more interesting things down here. Up here we have a light from a school in Oklahoma that Jerry sent me. Thank you so much, Jerry. And then through here we have all of our special bourbons through this little door. This door was like super rusty and we got it sandblasted and powder coated. And in here we've got all of our special bourbons. I've also got to work on the lighting in here. The kids somehow took the actual proper remote that works on choosing the color for this light. So now we're stuck with this creepy red. Yeah, if anyone has any other ideas, I am all ears. Definitely leave a comment and I'll add it to the project list. But yeah, just very excited with how this has come so far.
So that's it for making the Schoolhouse mosaics. It only took me 2.5 years to finish, so at this rate I should be done with the rest of the projects by 2047. It does feel good to finally cross this one off the list. Up next, because the projects never end, we are diving into the yard. I've been aggressively scheming on what to plant and where, and let me tell you, landscaping an entire schoolyard feels pretty overwhelming. So if you've got any ideas of native plants or edible plants or just weirdly delightful non-invasive things that have thrived in your own yard, please drop them in the comments. Gonna need all the help we can get. As always, thanks so much for following along this wild journey of turning an old school into our home. Until next time.